Welcome back to another episode of Salt and Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hello.
And today we're going to review Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. And just a fair warning, there will be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Weatherman Phil finds himself reliving the same day over and over again. Could this be a curse or could it be a good thing? Let's start off by introducing the cast. We have Bill Murray. We also have his brother, Brian Doyle Murray. We have Andy McDowell. We have Chris Elliott. We have Harold Ramis, not only director, screenplay writer, producer, but also an actor in the movie. We also have a groundhog by the name of Scooter. Yes, the groundhog has a name. So let's start off this review by saying that this is a classic movie. I enjoyed it, and every time I see it, I kind of have more questions, but not about the movie, but more about the time loop thing. In a sense, I'm really interested in time travel, and I think my co-host here also is into time travel, and we really enjoyed that factor. We like to think about it over and over again. My pros of this movie is the lines, how Bill Murray delivers his lines. Sometimes they're ad-libbed, they just flow, they really fit well into the movie. We see his character go from an angry, disheveled person who is just annoyed where the position where he is, and he wants to get out of there and become something better. And not as a person, he wants to be famous. He doesn't care who he steps on, who he hurts emotionally, physically, but he just wants to get there. And slowly he becomes the good Phil that we see at the end, that he understands, he listens to people, and he takes life for what it is. It's something wonderful. The only cons that I can see of this movie is that in one scene, I did see that there was a misedit, I would say, or they could have redone the shot. It's when Bill Murray and the guys at the bowling alley, they're drunk and they start driving, and he decides to drive on the railroad tracks. Once he starts driving on the railroad track, the car is supposed to be bumpy because it's hitting the rails. The two guys react by bopping their head and acting as if they're on the railroad tracks. But Bill Murray doesn't get the hint until later when he starts talking. It's another shot. Now he's bopping his head. So it's like, to me, it's like, wait, didn't Harold Ramis catch this and say, Bill Murray, let's redo that? You're on the railroad track, so bop your head. So that's the only thing. It kind of bothers me every time I see it. Other than that, I mean, every shot that is in the movie, every time he relives the day, the way it's shot continuously, and having this break it kind of bugs me. Also, this is one of the things that I recently started noticing every time I see this film is I get the notion that Phil needed to change. I understand that, but why does he need to change? Does he want to change, or does he want to change to have Rita fall in love with him? The universe is making him relive this day until he becomes the guy that Rita needs or wants, and this feels like it's forced upon him. But at the same time, I do see the whole picture that he has to become a person that he wants to change. He does change. He's carrying at the end, he befriends everybody in town, but then deeper down in me is like, does he really want to do this, or is he just because he's reliving the day over and over, and that's why it's the only option? And also, to play devil's advocate, I do notice that he does save people. He does save the kid who falls from the tree, but the other thing is when he's trying to save the old guy, the old homeless guy, and he keeps dying and dying, we don't really see him come back. In a sense, we know that he is dead. So what changes in Bill Murray? Is this the factor that changes him? Is this how it's supposed to be? This is the catalyst that basically motivates him to become a better person, knowing the fact that he can't really save everybody and not everybody can have a good day. So I would have wanted a little more of that, like to see him get really impacted by this homeless guy who he just sees, and then all of a sudden he cares about, he wants to save. So I think that's one of the elements I really wanted to see added into this or focused on. But it is what it is. The movie itself, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characters, how they played upon each other. Also how Harold Ramis, the director, put himself as a neurologist and telling Bill Murray that, go see a psychiatrist. So in that sense, it's kind of a funny thing. These two people are always working together. Sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're not talking to each other. But overall, I really enjoyed this film. So I'm going to throw this to Touly, see what he thought about the movie.
So for Groundhog Day, I guess let me start up the preface that I know that this film is a classic, and it is normally referred upon when a time loop or just some sort of experience where a character has to go over and over to to better themselves. This is probably one of those films that people refer to right off the bat if they were to compare it to something. I agree with Sal that this film does do a great job in a lot of ways. Particularly, I enjoyed the dialogue. Some of the lines are great. Even scenes that didn't have a lot of dialogue, it just made me laugh because of the way they set up the scene. For example, the scene where he kept on meeting Ned, who claims to be a student in the same class that Phil was in, and of course Phil doesn't remember. I'm not sure really where the film was going with this in terms of making him a better person. Like maybe they wanted him to act more kindly to this guy, but to me this guy was acting kind of rude, as well though from the get-go. This Ned guy, like, he was being very pushy and trying to introduce himself to Phil, even though Phil didn't recognize him. And I wouldn't blame Phil either. Like, we don't remember every single person who we have encountered in life. For him to be like that pushy on Phil, and for him to try to sell, life insurance or whatever to him as well. That scene was set up to where when they finally met at one point, Phil was like, "Hey Ned," and he just punches him, and that just made me laugh. That's like, that was something like the universe was setting himself up to do. I would have gladly accepted that. I know they were trying to make it seem like the way he was treating Ned was inappropriate as well, and I still don't get it, because at the end he ended up helping Ned by just buying all the insurance policies that he could from him. Maybe if they have shown Ned struggling financially in some regards, then yeah, maybe I could see more meaning into that. But for him to just do that and for Rita to be impressed by it, that didn't quite hit the mark for me though. I mean, overall, like the dialogue and the way they set up certain scenes, I think was well done. I mean, I might be picky here because I realize this film isn't perfect. I hope people don't treat this film as being perfect, because there are things I could even argue in any film or TV series that isn't perfect. So I want to bring up some of the cons that I didn't like about this film. I did feel like some of the transitions from one scene to the next didn't quite do it for me, just because it wasn't set up in terms of like the time looping theme that I am accustomed to. To be more specific about that, when Phil went through the first time loop, I think how they set up that scene was him, the crew getting caught in the blizzard, and then Phil on the phone, sounding disgruntled, which again, Bill Murray did a really great job of portraying this very glass half empty sort of guy who is very, pessimistic and egotistical and stuff like that. Another great pro about this film too. But yeah, the way they set up this first time loop, where then, he goes back to the bread and breakfast, and then he takes a cold shower, and then all of a sudden you see him wake up to 6 a.m. in the morning, and I sort of like felt a disconnect there, because I was like, well, what happened right after he took that shower? Like, were we just supposed to assume that he just went to sleep? I wish they would have just maybe added another scene to have transitioned us to him going to sleep. Like maybe him again sounding disgruntled about the day, that he's still stuck here in this place, that he doesn't want to be here, and then as he's just talking to himself like this, then he falls asleep, or just something that would lead us to him falling asleep. Even him like maybe just dying somehow, I would have accepted that. But I wish there would have been something to transition us into the first time loop, so that we get like a full picture of how this is occurring, so that when future occurrences happen, we could accept it for what it is. Like, okay, this time it's because of this that he ended waking up at 6 a.m. again, and that they don't have to show us like what happened in between anymore. Like, it's just because like through the instances that they show later in the film where he just jumped off a building, or he probably ending up getting shot, or whatever they want to come up with, which they did in the film, then I can accept that for what it is. But I think for the first time they needed to show a full picture, so that as an audience I see what's going on. So that to me is, I would say, it's a con of the film, where they didn't quite transition it well for the first time loop. And then I agree with Sal too in terms of like in trying to successfully court Rita. I know it wasn't probably his intention at the end. He was able to win Rita over, but if it's this whole universe concept again, where if the universe is judging Phil and they want him to become a better person, I would have liked it for him to not get maybe rewarded by being able to be with Rita, or for Rita to just simply accept all these accomplishments or all these accolades that the town was like showering Phil, with. I would question that as well, just like how she was questioning him earlier when his intention was trying to actually court her, and she was being very suspicious, like, wait, how did you know this about me? And it got to the point where she was like, oh, you know what, I fell for it. Why was I so foolish? And then because of that, Phil kept on failing to try to court her, and because it led to his state of depression, depression. And to me, that seemed kind of weird for that to be the reason why he fell into this lump and wanted to kill himself to try to get out of this loop. It sort of just speaks to the idea of, was this the purpose all along, to win Rita over somehow, and the universe was going to reward him later down the road if he was able to get on her good side, and which she did. But to me, the way he was doing it at the end, or should I say the way it was being portrayed, I would still question if I were Rita, because to see all these people who Phil hasn't encountered from her eyes, for them to just come up to him and praise him for all these deeds that he's done, I would question that. So I didn't find that too believable. And for Rita to have suddenly see Phil as a true and honest person, on one side, yes, I sort of see it, but at the same time, I would still question it. It's like, wait, you did this all in one day? Doesn't this seem still sort of suspicious? The way I probably would have liked to see the sequence was maybe Phil be successful in terms of like wanting to be a good person, wanting to change for the better good, wanting to go around and help people and not worry about whether or not these people remember or not. And as he's continuing to do this, then he starts to break down mentally. Like he starts to question, you know what, I'm trying my best to change so much, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? And then comes in the whole intervention with Rita and him revealing to her that, oh, you know what, I know these people because I've lived with them, because I've been in this time loop, and I've been trying my best to be a better man, and I'm not sure if you believe me because you're hearing this for the first time, and go from there or something. But I think the way they sequenced his struggle was a little out of order for it to be a little more impactful than it could have been. I mean, it still convinced me in some ways, but I thought it could have been a little bit better. Yeah, overall, it is still a classic film, a film that people would refer to when we come to these time loop scenarios where people are just trying to improve upon themselves, and whether you account it to like the universe judging you or some sort of scientific explanation as to why you're trapped in this time loop, or it all boils down to, what do you do when you're put into this situation? Are you going to stay the same person, or are you going to change? Are you going to accept what happened in the past and try to get better, or whatever? And I mean, Phil obviously changed, but I felt like it felt a little rushed at the end. Like maybe had they just started him just trying to improve it instead of just continue onward with his foolishness and trying to take advantage of the situation, which I'm still all right with them trying to explore. It's always an idea, right? Like if you were given the opportunity to keep doing this over and over and not worry about quote unquote dying, it's a fun idea to play with. But I felt like the core of this should have been focused more about Phil getting better, and then him at some point breaking down because he felt like even if he was trying to get better or trying to be a better person, it didn't matter, and then build up from that state of mind. I guess it is what it is, but overall I still liked it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I see your points and I agree. It's almost the same thing I was saying. It's like, is he changing because he's being forced to, or does he want to, or what's the whole thing? And if it is, show us that process. Don't just go from one day to another and then at the same time just expect Rita to take it for granted, like, oh, you changed, finally, okay, that's it, not even question it. We saw that she questioned it before and she's smart about it, so why not question it at the end?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up too. It kind of showcased Rita's bad side as well as a character, because it felt like she was jealous, and that was the only reason why she wanted to bid on Phil, because people were placing bid at, to win the date with him. They saw how much he was getting praise, and she was like, oh, all of a sudden, man, this is a person who I might let slip away, so I better do something about it, or something like that. So it didn't feel authentic from her side as well in that retrospect.
Yeah, with that, I'm going to ask Touly for his final grade.
Still a good film, regardless of some of the cons that I mentioned. Yeah, I would give the film a 8 out of 10.
As I would. I give it an 8 out of 10. It's a classic movie, but it does sometimes give us this question, and we just linger on, did he really change? How did he change? We didn't see him change. But other than that, for this movie, being a classic and everything, it still holds to this day. And we also, like Touly said, we just reference this movie for any time we see a loop in the movie. Oh, it's just like Groundhog Day. That's the common joke everybody thinks about. Okay, so with that, let's wrap up this episode for Groundhog's Day. Please join us next time when we review Breakfast at Tiffany's. Remember, social media is down in the description. Hit us up if you have any questions. And remember, keep watching movies.